how to find the midpoint. So if you think of a line segment that's going diagonally, we'll call this TS, and maybe we even have the points, the coordinates for these. Let's say 4, 3, and S is 8, 5. I need to know how to find the midpoint of that line segment, and it's not one that's horizontal or vertical, so I can't just use a ruler postulate. So what I will do is I will think about what happens here vertically and horizontally. Okay, so if my x value here was 4, but on this point it's 8, then down here my x coordinate would still be 8, because it lines up with this value that has the x coordinate 8. The y coordinate will be matching where this point is, so it would be 3. So this point where I can make it into a right triangle is 8, 3. Now one way that I could find the midpoint of the line segment is to find the midpoint of each of the vertical and horizontal lines. So I could find the midpoint here between 5 and 3, because I'm looking only at the y coordinates. The x coordinates are staying the same. They're both 8. So 5 minus 3 would be 2, and then that's wrong. I'm saying it wrong. The point that's halfway between 5 and 3 is 4. That value. Okay, and then here, well, I didn't draw that very well. The halfway between 4 and 8 would be, it each have to be 2 spaces away from the other one, so that would be at 6. So then I could draw those upward and see where they intersect. And where they intersect should be the midpoint of this line segment. So it would have an x value of 4. That's the y value. The y value of 4. The x value of 6. I'm getting my points mixed up. Sorry about that. Okay, but it would take a long time if we always had to draw a picture to find it. So we have a formula in order to find it called the midpoint formula. Okay, it says that if I have 2 points, we're going to use A and B again, x1, y1 for A, and B will be x2, y2. Then I can find the midpoint, M is what we're going to call it. That will be equal to, I'm going to make this inside a point, so each coordinate we're going to be able to find. For the x coordinate, we will add the 2 x coordinates from the points A and B, so x1 plus x2, and then we'll divide that by 2. And then for the y coordinates, we'll do y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So what we're doing really is we're averaging the x coordinates, we're adding the 2 coordinates together and dividing by 2, and we're averaging the y coordinates, doing the same thing. So that's how I like to remember it, is that these are just averages. We're averaging the distance. So let's try one. Let's let Q be, this is from example 3, let's let Q be 3, 5, and S will be 7, negative 9. Okay, and you have a picture of that in your book. They've got it graphed. They're asking us to find the coordinates of its midpoint M. So the midpoints of the line segment QS. So I'm going to put M equals 3 plus 7. So I'm adding the x values, 3 plus 7, and dividing by 2. And then I'm going to add the y values to find the new y coordinate, 5 plus negative 9, and divide by 2. So that's going to be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And here I'm going to get negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. So the midpoint of the line segment QS would be 5, negative 2. And if you graph that on the graph that you already had Q and S graphed on, it should be halfway between Q and S. Even though they're not vertical and horizontal, we can still find the midpoint. Okay, so I want y'all to try quick check 3. So turn this off, or pause it, try the problem, and then turn it back on, and we'll work out the answer. Okay, here we are. You've worked it out, and I'm going to show you the answer here. So we have coordinates. We're trying to find the coordinates of the midpoint of the line segment xy when x is 2, -5, and y is 6, 13. Okay, so m will be 2 plus 6 divided by 2 for the x coordinate, and -5 plus 13 divided by 2 for the y coordinate. That will give us 8 over 2, which is 4, and 8 over 2, which is 4. So we get 4, 4 for the midpoint. That's on quick check 3. All right, one final example. Sometimes when you know the midpoint, but you don't know one of the endpoints. So we need to see how to find the endpoint. So this time, I'm given that the midpoint of the line segment AB is the point 3, 4. I know A, which is -3, 2. -3, -2. And I don't know B. So I'm just going to put down x1, y1. Or I could just use x and y. Either way. All right, so I'm trying to find this endpoint. These are the directions that should indicate that this is the way you're going to work it out. So if I want to find the endpoint B, then I'm going to use the midpoint formula, which would be x1 plus x2 over 2 for the x value, y1 plus y2 over 2 for the y value, and that should equal 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to fill in right here. X1 is what we're looking for. X1 plus, this time x2 is going to be -3 over 2. And here we're going to put in y1 plus -2 all over 2. That should be equal to 3, 4. Now, sometimes you can look at this and figure out what your answer is going to be, but you need to know how to do it in case you don't recognize it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first x coordinate, I'm going to set these two things equal. And I'm going to solve for x1. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the y coordinate. So I'll have two different equations that I'm solving. So for the first one I have x1 plus -3 over 2 equals 3. Okay, in order to solve this, I want to not have the 2 in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. It will cancel over here, and I'll have x1 plus -3 equals 6. Okay, and then I'm just going to need to add 3 to both sides. So I get x1 equals 9. Now you can check and make sure that you got it right by putting it back in. So if I did 9 plus -3, that would be 6. 6 divided by 2 would indeed be 3. Okay, and then we'll do the y values. So I'm setting y1 plus -2 over 2 equal to 4. Again, I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. The 2's will cancel on the left. I'll have y1 plus -2 equals 8. I'll add 2 to both sides, and I'll get y1 equals 10. Okay, so my values, my coordinates for B would then be 9, 10. So I could take that and do the midpoint formula with A just to double check that I do get this midpoint when I use that formula. Okay, this is all for this section. Do your homework and let me know if you have any questions.